Hi, my name is Raheem Nelson, and in this video I'm going to cover the basics on using ArtRage Vitae. It's available on iOS and Android. In this video we're going to go over color mixing, we're going to go over how to use the oils brush, the palette knife, the paint tube, and just pretty much the basics that you would need to hit the ground running using the ArtRage program. It's amazing, I love the painting engine. And first thing you want to do, you just want to make sure that any windows you have in the background are turned off, because this is an intense program that's going to use a lot of memory. If you want to create a new painting, you're just going to hit the cross that's in the upper right corner that's here, and you're going to hit create new painting. And it's 767 by 1024. I'm going to be painting landscape, so I am going to flip that here. And you can even change your paper texture here. I usually just go with the default, but you've got canvases, coarse paper, crumpled, just a ton of options that you can use to paint on, and it will respond differently depending on what you pick, which is pretty cool. And you can change the depth here, the opacity. You can make it more see-through if you want, and you can make it metallic as well, but you have a lot of options. And for this here, record script file, basically if you have ArtRage on like a desktop or a laptop, you can export the brush strokes to your laptop or desktop, so you can play that back. Other programs do that as well. ArtRage does it a little differently, just because of the painting engine. So I'm going to get started here. You hit done, and then it creates a new canvas. It's the driest brush. And if I keep painting, it's gonna accumulate. So I don't really use this too much. I prefer to have more paint on my brush, so to speak. But for those of you that might want to use a dry brush, it's there for you. It's pretty cool. Dry clumps looks like this. And if I pick another color, you can paint right over it. So really super dry brush. The next one, dry varnish. There's a little varnish to it. It's a little slicker than the last one. And if you notice, I can paint until a certain point and then it runs out. Like if you are actually using paint, which is pretty interesting. And I can mix in another color here. Just paint on top of it like that. And so it's set to insta-dry. That means paint's going to be dry when it hits the canvas. If I turn that off, now it's wet against wet paint. So now it starts to mix. So you can have tons of different painting styles depending on what your preference is. So it's nice to just play around with it and just see what you can come up with. So the program recognizes that there's wet paint on the canvas, so it's just going to start mixing everything. And if I want to turn that back on, it'll be dried right away. So for what I usually use is everlasting oil. I just like to make sure that the paint just keeps going. I can just keep painting and painting and painting. Another cool brush is the other one that's down here called Unclean Brush. So it's just like it sounds. Whatever paint you have on your brush last is going to influence the next color. And if I start with this green, and I switch to going to a red, it's still going to reflect the paint that I had on my brush before. And the paint on the canvas is still wet, so it's all going to mix. So you also have layers in ArtRage, which are down here. I'm going to create a new layer and show off something else you can do with the program. So I'm going to turn this off. You hit the eye. There's also a really great paint tube. So one thing that I like to do Just take the tube, I'm gonna make this bigger, and then just put some paint on the canvas. Doesn't matter which colors. So I'm just gonna put a few more. And after you have some paint, oh, it's asking me to save, so I'm gonna hit that. Now it's gonna be in my gallery. So after you get some paint on the canvas, then you can switch to the palette knife. And since you have paint on the canvas already, and I'm on this layer up here instead of the one down here that's turned off, now you can use the blending tool. Well, it's a palette knife, but you're blending basically, and you have presets on this also. So I'm gonna use, I'll use hard out smudge, and I'm gonna turn the pressure down. I'm gonna do that by hand. I'm gonna turn the pressure down, and I'm gonna increase the size of the palette knife. So you can just start pushing the paint around on the canvas. And depending on the pressure you use, it can either stay hard or it can get softer. And I'm using the Apple pencil for this, so it's also pressure sensitive. So this is just a fun exercise that I like to do if I'm making something abstract, or if I just want to play around with the paint and see what I can come up with. And you just make these great shapes and these great colors that just blend together seamlessly. And I'm just going to go all the way to the edge and just see how far I can stretch the paint before it dries out. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And if I want to go back to the gallery, I just hit the little ArtRage icon down here, and I go to View Gallery, and then everything is saved. So if I want to give it a title, I can. For the sake of the exercise, I'll just call this one Test. So then you can pull up the keyboard, call it Test, and then you hit Done or OK, and then it's all set. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial of ArtRage Basics. For the next video, I'll get more in depth with the tools and just what you can pull off with it. It's a great program, really cheap. It's on the App Store, and I highly recommend it. It's one of the main programs I use for my artwork, in my personal and professional artwork, and I look forward to showing you the next tutorial.